Well, hello and welcome to the Smells Like Money podcast. Join me, Suzan Taylor, the DooDoo Diva, as I interview guests who are making an impact on how we manage and operate systems for conveying and treating wastewater. As a veteran of the wastewater, trenchless, and civil infrastructure industry, each week I'll be bringing you industry know-how from industry pros who know how. Join me each week as I speak with representatives of organizations that are utilizing disruptive or new technologies and methods, and executives who are excited to share how to be successful and sustainable in our vital industry. So whether you want to learn about the latest trends in technology, in treatment or trenchless, gain tips on training and retaining great talent, or simply how to be more efficient, productive, or profitable, this podcast is for you. Ready? Let's dive right in. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the DooDoo Divas Smells Like Money podcast. We have the great pleasure of visiting with a longtime industry friend of mine, Stan Stoneman, the VP of Red Dog Nozzles and Pipe Hunter. Stan and I go way back, actually even further back in family. I have the history of having worked with his father, Tommy, when I first came into the industry back in 1998. And so it's really nice to be visiting with a manufacturing company that is actually still family owned and operated and actually multi-generational, which is very refreshing in our day and age. So welcome to the show, Stan.
Thank you. It's cool to be here.
All right. So you and I had a little conversation, before we were going to bring you on the show, because I've always admired your nozzles. They look really amazingly cool. They're very attractive, but everything can be a pretty picture. But at the end of the day, it's got to do the job. And so we kind of discussed often the misperceptions that people in the industry have about nozzles, where they're manufactured and where they're coming from. And so I'd like you to open that up with what you've been seeing as a shift in perception and maybe kind of setting the record straight that just because something is coming from overseas may not mean it's better or of inferior quality, and why we should really be taking a look at things that are homegrown right here in the United States, outside of even, buy USA, that why that makes smart business.
Right. So in the process of us developing Red Dog over the years, we've sold every European brand out there. And come to find out, most people don't know that they're buying European tools. And not that we have a vengeance against European tools. There's so many good ideas that come from Europe and Switzerland and Germany. It's just really neat I've seen very few American-based companies doing what we're doing, and we're the only equipment manufacturer, jetting and vacuum equipment manufacturer, making our own line of nozzles. Everybody else either private label somebody else's work or find something that fits that they can push across their distributor network. Very few have taken a whole hog approach like we have. And honestly, it's neat being able to sell other people's stuff. It's even cooler to lean in and develop it yourself and develop that skill set. And being able to do it in the States here is even cooler. So,
yeah, I was going to ask you what drove the company to make that decision, because you were always known as being, you did CCTV equipment when we worked together, and then you started to develop your own line of, sewer combination, jetters and vacs. What drove you to decide maybe we need a nozzle line? And what did it take to get that? What did it take to get that off the ground as well?
So you can imagine how big a project it is, and then multiply that by 1,000 for the amount of effort that goes into it. But what kicked it off really? We started, and we've sold several other European product lines, but you'd have to beg and plead to get a variation or a tweak, or I'd like six holes here, not 4, or hey, this is too sharp. I mean, just every little variation. Man, it took an act of Congress, or they had 10,000 pieces on the shelf and they weren't making a change. So it's kind of nice. Uh, we started, I got an education in machining. I can't tell you how many meetings I've had at the CNC machine with the machinist, and they're telling me, "Hey, man, you can't make a hole through that because you have to have them have a hole over here to feed it, or have to have a way to hold it." That I got a crash course over the last 4 or 5 years of just, "Hey, man, that's not possible. Here's how we could do it." And honestly, I've had a lot of fun getting to know the machinist and them educating me. I love, love, love lathes and vertical mills and fifth axis machining, and we get to use all those things and learn them intimately. The cool thing is I don't have to live on a CNC machine. I just get to be creative with it and watch somebody else make it happen. And finding cool people to work with has been half the fun. So
You mentioned lathing tools, and I myself find lathing tools, especially steel lathing tools, and the machines to do that, just really cool to watch them work. Years ago, when he was still with us, God rest his soul, Michael Leary, the president then of Shamrock Pipe Tools, great loss to the industry there, and he gave me a tour and showed me how those machines work, and it was absolutely amazing what goes
yeah,
into that. So I too, I appreciate the artistry and the workmanship that goes into creating these tools. That they look very simple from the outside, but
yeah,
there's a lot more going under the hood. And so that was something that I really wanted to bring to the forefront, because you mentioned a lot of times we're buying all these things that are bells and whistles that we think we may need. But it's important as an operator to ask yourself, yeah, that's kind of cool on paper, but at the end of the day, do I really need that? Is that really going to improve my productivity? Is it really going to make a difference in the job that I have to do? And you stated to me, KISS, keep it simple, silly.
yes.
I don't want to say the other word, but do you really need it? So talk about a little bit on that, and that how all these things don't necessarily mean that you're getting a better tool.
No, no. So a there are many misconceptions across the industry, and some of the best stuff we do is go into a city and sit down and discuss the things that should matter and how nozzles work and why your guys use this nozzle most of the time. Uh, Getting into what actually works. So for us, the proof's in the pudding. If I can develop a tool that lasts, and I can manage the wear, and I can manage what materials go into it and manage the cost, we can find a road in there where there's a win for us selling a tool, there's a win for the customer, and everybody comes out ahead because we're not trying to sell them something that's gold plated, or that we claim that there's a lot of technology in it when really they added a chamfer or radius. And some of those things contribute to performance, but I promise you, most of the guys on the front of the truck, they care whether it'll pull the line, they think it breaks through the blockage, and whether they're getting the job done, and they can go back to the yard, go back home, and tell the boss, "Yeah, I solved the problem." They don't want to have to do calculus. They don't want to have to do algebra, anything to figure out what's going on the line. They want to say, that's old trusty. That's the one that's going to get it done, and that's the one that's going to get me home the quickest. And we find a road in there with, mildly exotic materials. Sometimes at worst, most of the time we're able to do it with less exotic and add a plating process. Uh, a lot of this stuff is too. There's stuff going on inside. Most people don't care to get into the details and that it's 1% better or 1/10% better. They want to know whether it's going to do the job effectively, and when it gets lost or broke, can they go to their boss and go ask for another one? Because some of this stuff's so expensive, and we really try to stay away from that area. But if it's so expensive that they can't afford a replacement, maybe they bought something too costly. Because this stuff's important to how these trucks run. If they don't have a decent tool on the front, it makes from the tires up, it makes everything look bad.
That makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah,
when we were talking about all of us, a lot of us may be listening to this, and this is kind of controversial about by Buy American, but I'm going to go there. And if people don't like it, oh well. European versus American nozzles. Not, like this is an advertisement for Red Dog, but things to consider. Equal apples to apples, the tool may be equal, but something that you mentioned, does it break down? I need a new one. But even if there's consumable parts, and especially right now, because the entire world seems to be suffering with supply chain issues.
Yeah.
What are some of the questions as someone is comparing nozzles and where they're going to get it from? Important due diligence questions so that they make the right purchase.
So what we like to say, what we like to consider replacement cost, how often your guys end up losing the tools. If it's common, again, you go back to it's really hard to replace something expensive if I know within 30 days, my guys are probably going to lose it or misplace it. So we've done everything we can to keep everything local, domestic, and that's where we really think that's important to us, and that's really valuable. We've come to find out that's not always important in the marketplace. There's some competitors, they'll put USA in their name just so people think that they're buying locally made tools, and it's really shipped in from overseas, rebranded, name slapped on it, and sold. And that doesn't knock anybody's performance or how they work, but it does change where the stuff's coming from and who's getting, whose payroll is getting paid off of it. Are we making Germans richer, or Switzerland, or are we helping other Americans out? And so us making nozzles locally with our name on them and going on Pipe Hunter, or really, I mean, nozzles work with anybody's jetter, but it's important to us that the stuff comes domestically and local. Unfortunately, again, it doesn't always matter, and most people don't care. It's price, and it will keep my guys happy and not make a lot of waves. That's kind of the conversation that happens most of the time. It's less about where it comes from and will it get the job done.
What are some things that you would advise for keeping nozzles in top performing condition, service? I know, you've sold CCTV cameras, you've sold jetters, and there's always, routine PM tasks. Are there such things for nozzles? And if so, what are they?
Absolutely. I would say the number one thing anybody could do with their nozzles are regularly take them off of your jetter hose, take them out, put them on the bench, clean the orifices out. And if you have replaceable inserts, pull those out and make sure there's no debris or no grit that's accumulated. That's the number one thing that kills inserts. It's also your net orifice size, or all of your holes together, what they calculate to. And the more you run it, the bigger those holes get, and the worse your nozzle runs as a result of it. So pull it off the hose, break it down on the bench, take it apart, figure out how it works and if everything looks good. Replacing rejetting it or cleaning the inserts is the best thing you can do. Just like your car, I mean, regularly putting it up on a lift and changing the fluids, that's important. The equivalent to that for a nozzle is just replacing an insert or eyeballing them for the most part.
How do you know when maybe your nozzle isn't performing as well as it could be? Like signs to look out for? What will you notice happening in the field?
You'll notice a difficulty developing pressure. And there's a lot of misconceptions about flow and pressure out there. Most people consider pressure to be kind of like horsepower for your car.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily horsepower. It's more like, what's a good equivalent? It's kind of like it's more of a result than it is an absolute. It's like if all the conditions are right, then you'll be able to produce enough pressure. So again, if the orifices get opened up more, then you'll be able to produce 1,500, not 2,000 psi, just as an example. And if you can do that, that's the best indicator. The number one thing we see on jetters is not cleaning the strainer for the water that's going to your water pump. They'll wait till it gets plugged up before they stop and look at it, and that should be a daily thing.
Okay. All right. Good tips. Good tips there. And again, getting back to the supply chain, what should operators have on hand for spare parts in case there's delays in getting things that they're going to need? What's a good
Um,
shopping list? Just to make sure I
yeah,
always have one on the shelf. Because if it's a three week backlog, I'm out of luck.
yeah. Some tip cleaners so that they can regularly maintenance their nozzles and take care of them. A good backup nozzle, and we like variety. Having one nozzle for doing everything is not a good solution for anybody. Most of it because they're so specific with the purpose we design them in. So if you're trying to take a blockage nozzle and do production cleaning, you're giving up a lot of thrust and you're putting energy where it doesn't really help you or benefit you. So little things to keep the jets happy. A backup, even if it's a drilled nozzle, that's the lowest quality nozzle we see and we make. Just because it's easy to have $100 nozzle on backup versus a $2,000 nozzle. Because arguing for a $2,000 nozzle with the boss, it's far easier to say, hey, I just need something to keep me going in case the trusty one gets lost. So
Now I've seen your beautiful like rolling showroom. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to send us a photograph of that so that I can have it spliced into the video version of the podcast because it really is something to behold. It's pretty spectacular. So you have nozzles for plumbers, residential plumbers, all the way up to big, large diameter, massive trunk lines. So if you were to maybe this question can't be answered, but a typical good cleaning kit for a contractor that's doing municipal lines, let's just say the average 6 to 24. How many nozzles should they be looking for an investment, including that backup that you had, just to have, you were saying for the job, a nice variety. What's a good starting point?
a good 3 to 4 nozzle setup can cover 99% of what anybody needs. We often get drug into really specialized or really specific things where, it's a really long length or a really weird diameter line, and they're trying to take out, somebody in a construction site poured mortar down or concrete down the line, and that's a real specific scenario. We try to stay away from the real specific stuff because, again, you're getting into exotic territory. But if you have something for general cleaning for 6 to 24, like a grenade style nozzle, we call ours a hero. Something for blockages, like we call it like a root dog or a chisel style. A good long john style is a good one, and some larger diameter. And we actually make quite a few aluminum nozzles as well, with one benefit in that if you get into a heavy debris line, really dense nozzles tend to just bury in the bottom of the line, and now you're fighting the mechanics of gravity and really dense packed debris. Aluminum nozzle will cruise right up on top and get past it, and it just makes quick because you're letting the jets do the work now. You're not trying to fight with pure horsepower and pure thrust. So that's a good little variety that would keep you out of trouble. It's 2 things to throw out blockages and 2 things to throw out production cleaning, which are the 2 main reasons anybody puts a hose in pipe. So
All right.
yeah.
Now, when we were talking about taking the complex and simplify and ruggedize, I love that. I love this, and I want you to really expand on it. You said to me, old school still works.
Yes.
And that we as people in the field doing cleaning, or even as manufacturers, let's think, or let's not assume that we need to reinvent the wheel just because we're in a new school world.
Yeah. So just because you can put a computer in it or a sensor, uh, for us, long term, because this piece of equipment is going to be around for 25, 30 years if it's well made. Uh, okay, it's worth doing with stuff that's tried and true because most of the ideas and the designs and features we're using today are not recent, are not. It's just a reapplication of something that somebody designed elsewhere, and we're using it here, which is how most cool ideas come about. Uh, but simplicity for us, we can take exotic. I mean, we can replace bearings with more tried and true style. I've got one. We love 3D printing. That's pretty low. It's kind of high tech these days, but it helps us take the complexity out because drawing it on a computer screen is one thing, but holding it holding it and eyeballing it, and because you can draw it and it looks this big, but when you come back, you go, oh, great, this thing, oh, good, that's I can get my hand around that, or hey, my finger fits in there, and that'll help me put the C clip in. Little stuff like that goes a long way because we design for, man, this is a guy who's been to the city for 20 years. He's worked his way up, and I want him to take the skill set he's developed along the way and make it to where this stuff works for him. And he's not having to call, hey, that one C clip, that's real special that only you make or you had stamped for you. Yeah, I need two, and I need them yesterday. And guess what? We should have designed something that off of the part should have come from an axle, like a spindle, or something you can drive to the trailer place and go get the components for. Those kind of ideas, always locking somebody into something that's really exotic and really hard to get. I like that for the revenue side. I don't like that for the guy that's in a pinch and has to have something today. Simple, and that line of thinking. To me, that's what gets people long term is empowering them to go maintain the stuff themselves, not having to meet them calling me for expensive parts, but I'd rather have thought ahead and planned around something that they could keep going most days.
Well, that approach has, served you well, starting over on the pipe hunter side, is that when you started doing the combination and the jetters, is simplifying the chassis and just let's just put something together that's affordable that gets the job done. Especially, there's a lot of small towns in Texas that can't afford those several $100,000 big, combination trucks from the name players, but this will do the job. And so I really like that. I like that philosophy, Stan, of, keeping it simple. Do you really need it? And I just, we
Most
talked
days.
about it's people get, how would you say, attracted by the next best shiny object.
Shiny object is the best way to put it.
There you go.
Yeah. A lot of our competitors will come in with something that's proven that they can go shop parts for at the auto store. An automotive relay. They can troubleshoot with a test light. That's becoming a scarcity. A lot of newer trucks, you need a laptop to troubleshoot. And for us, that's not a requirement to keep a truck in the field. If a fuse goes out or a relay, you should be able to swap wires and go chase the part and get the truck back up because it's the line in front of the mayor's house, and that thing needs to. I don't I don't like an overflow in front of the mayor's house. That makes all of us look bad. So we try very hard. We're the new trend in the last 5 years in the industry with big trucks is CAN bus, and we like to say we're allergic to CAN bus. So we only pick up on our big trucks. We only pick up a speed sensor off the transmission, and the rest of it is 12-volt architecture. And that's what, because the big comparison for us, we want our truck to be compared to your grandpa's truck, the old red one in the driveway he's had for 40 years. That's the one you can pop the hood and you can dial in the carburetor, you can change the air cleaner, and oh man, that's a coil pack on the top. That's an easy fix. Not I need a laptop to figure out it's some fuel map sensor that's exotic, and guess what? I got to get it from Ford and they're on back order and they don't know when they're getting them. But guess what? I can get that coil pack from 3 parts places in town. We want to be the old parts place in town. They can go get, they can get the parts and get back up.
That's a good point.
And it doesn't cost us any performance.
Right. It's people don't think about sometimes what's going to happen after the sale. It looks great and it runs great for like the first 30 days, but what am I going to do 6 months from now when it breaks down? You have to think about that.
We see big fancy. We think it's really important. Sometimes that that one little option, that one little shiny object for us is enough for somebody to make a decision on a truck. And I can't count how many times it's where the control panel is located, or man, those guys never had the parts, or it was a simple fix. I called Tommy or Stan or my local pipe under dealer, and oh man, they told me it was what fuse to check or to check the air solenoid switch. And guess what? My guys are back up and we were making money the same day. That to us is really valuable, and that's to us, that's what lasts. Trying to pin the customer down because they need an exotic part that we designed and we only have made. That's not our philosophy and never has been. Starting with my grandpa, he wanted you to buy another jetter because ours did well over the 15-year career it had at the city, and that's the reputation we want, and that's the legacy we want for our equipment.
That's fantastic. Well, in just wrapping up,
Yeah.
two final questions for you. First is,
Okay.
where do you see the industry going? Like, what do you feel have been some of the most important innovations that have really helped the industry, and what do you predict may come next in, cleaning, what you're doing for the product lines that you're making?
Okay. Tell you what, we see a huge trend towards jet video and jet cameras.
Okay.
It has become a gee whiz thing to I can't count how many customers. They call me, they say, hey, I need 2 jet cameras because I'm going to do the entire town. I'm going to be the guy that kept us in compliance with our CMOM requirements. And they're spending under 20 grand, and one overflow would cover one of our systems anyways. So we're really seeing jet video, and also like we have some friends at Sewer AI. They have a really, really neat service. So you can take our jet camera and combine that with Sewer AI or regular video coming off of a regular pan and tilt camera system, and really go get some stuff done and get out of hot water, especially if you're under consent decree or you're looking at straight in the eye. And those couple tools and those just couple ideas have really been powerful, because some of the systems out there are so well maintained, there's hardly any debris. And that makes it hard to sell big trucks, if everybody would realize that. So we like selling a small size truck because of that as well. So non-CDL is a big idea for us as well. We build a 3-yard truck that's been popular because, especially in Texas where the oil patch is going, it's really hard for cities to hang on to operators, because the second they get their CDL, they can go make $50,000 more a year driving a truck in the oil field. And sitting at the city waiting on a call for a water main break is not really appealing when you can go make that much more money.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And last question, you've been in the industry probably just as long as I have. Your pearls of wisdom to operators out there, maybe looking at a jetting rig, maybe looking at some new nozzles. What would your words of wisdom be to them?
Words of wisdom in regards to nozzles and or jet cleaning equipment, I would say a little maintenance goes a long way. Just a little care, and 5 minutes, even if it's 5 minutes of doing the right thing is far better than ignoring it and pretending like it's never going to happen. That and I would say get to know your nozzles, because operators are making important decisions. A change in a nozzle and using the right tool is the difference in a guy spending 4 hours beating on the same problem, or spending 20 minutes and moving on to the next work order. So getting your guys educated on how nozzles work, and so they can make good decisions around which one to use is pretty important.
Oh, that was great. That was great. So for those of you who've been tuning in, if you are interested in connecting with Stan, you can do so on LinkedIn. His LinkedIn link will be in the show notes, or you can visit the websites. And that is, Stan, if you would let people know the 2 websites that they have to learn more about you and your products.
RedDogNozzles.com, and it's DAWG is our nozzle website, and pipehunter.com, PIPEHUNTER.com.
And I'm just going to ask this one more question, Stan, before you go, just for curiosity's sake. Where did the name Red Dog or Dog nozzles come from?
There's no real secret story. I have a really, really cool rescue dog that we love dearly, and we all going to do something in the dog realm, and we just came up with something memorable. So Red Dog was the hook, and that's what we came up with. It was 3 of us in the parts office, because when we started this, I was in a parts counter doing parts and service, and we just found something that kind of rung and kind of was memorable, and we went from there.
It's catchy. I like it. I like it
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Stan, for all of the great information and the conversation today. And of course, your pearls of wisdom, they were wonderful. And for those of you tuning in, thank you for spending your time with us today. We look forward to having you on another episode and tuning in to the DooDoo Divas weekly podcast of Smells Like Money. And until next time, keep it flowing. Thanks so much for joining me, the DooDoo Diva, on this week's episode of Smells Like Money. What stood out to you this week? Share your takeaways by leaving me a review. You can find out more about the new technologies, creating sustainable solutions, and insights on how to succeed in our vital industry by subscribing to the show. Whether you want to learn about the latest trends in wastewater infrastructure, treatment, or trenchless, you've got it all right here at Smells Like Money. If you're an industry expert and would like to be considered as a guest for the show, book a quick chat with me by visiting calendly.com/the2it group/B-A-podcast-guest, or simply click the link in the show notes below. Until next week, a big shout out to all my industry friends and those who will be. You are my superheroes. Thanks for tuning in, keeping it flowing, and we'll see you all next week.